Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. The campaign is Horror on the Orient Express. It's available from Chaosium, and I'm the keeper of the secrets. This is episode 2. Our recap will be given by Morgan Llewellyn as his character, Dr. Gabriel Neruda. So, without any further delay, let's continue our journey into the darkness. Morgan?
It is not every day that you are privileged with the sight of something truly remarkable. For me, that opportunity first arrived on the week of November 12, 1921. I had received a telegram from Julius Arthur Smythe regarding strange occurrences in Rutland, Massachusetts on the property of the Hughes family. I was glad to hear from Julius and see that he had found enough light after the death of his dear wife to send word to us of a potential investigation like old times. In high spirits, I gathered several other members of the Arcane Society inner circle to my humble home for wine, dinner, and to share the details of the telegram. Among this esteemed company, there were fine individuals indeed. Dr. Roland Kurtz, an inorganic chemist, Theodore Thursby III, a black sheep and big game hunter, Gunter Block, a stage magician, Dr. Edison York, a medical doctor, and Dr. Dorian Dabrowski, the archaeologist. Together, we gathered equipment and drove out to see the Hughes. Samuel and Sarah have such a lovely home and a lovely family with their farmhouse and 2 boys, Bobby and Billy. Their hospitality was most welcome after a few hours on the road, and Sarah makes delightful lemonade cookies. They also had an interesting story to tell. At the zenith of every full moon, their pond was being visited by a strange ship enshrouded in an ethereal purple hue. We remained at the farmhouse and watched for the ship, and in the silent stillness of the witching hour it came. All of us were in awe. In no way could this be some parlor trick with projection. It was a racing yacht named the Valkyrie II. Dorian and I rode out to it, and we could pass through it and see the interior. We saw a man pass out on the floor before a table with an open book. As I said, we were privileged with the sight of something truly remarkable, something truly supernatural. Through further research, we found that the Valkyrie II was a gaff-rigged cutter that raced in 1893 and disappeared in 1894. We have buzzed with excitement ever since. Now, because of our discovery and work researching this phenomena, Julius Smythe has invited all of us from the investigative team to join him in London on January 3rd, 1923 for the Challenger Lecture. It feels nice to be traveling in delightful company to see an old friend, even though it takes me even farther away from my beloved Argentina.
Excellent. All right, so you have, it's now 1922, middle of the year is when you received that. You have a number of months to plan. You book passage together on I think it's HMS Leviathan, the SS Leviathan, sorry, which is a large steamer ship. It's not what you would call a luxury liner from our perspective nowadays, but it's a fairly decent ship for its time. You also need to consider where, when you get there, you would like to stay. There are a number of top-class hotels. There is the Ritz, of course, which is quite beautiful. There is Claridge's. There is the Carlton. And for the people who don't want to spend as much money, there is the Midland Grand, which is still very nice. What would you guys like? What decisions would you like to make?
I liked the Carlton. I thought the pool looked especially nice.
Oh, you read my mind. I love the Carlton as well. That pool drew my eye.
Now, is it an outdoor or an indoor pool?
It's an indoor pool.
Indoor.
Oh, well, that's handy to have in January.
I believe since my family's in Swindon, which isn't that far away, it's a couple hours, and I've done some residency in London. I believe I have a family flat, a luxury apartment near downtown.
Okay.
That I'll stay there. Yeah.
You'll stay there by yourself, or did you want to invite others? Or
well, it would be just too cramped, I'm sure, for others. It's what with the servants that are already on site, there just won't be enough room already. So
okay,
but maybe they can visit the lobby.
The Challenger lecture is at this place Maudley. Is that closer to one of these hotels than another?
Maudley is a display going up at the British Museum.
Oh, so which of these is closest to the British Museum?
They're all
Mayfair, yes.
They're all fairly close to the center of London. So,
and it will be more convenient to stay with these fellows at the Carlton.
Yes, the Carlton for sure.
Yes, I have no problem with the Carlton. Refresh my memory, Roland, about the Motley.
Maudsley is the name of the establishment that is hosting the Challenger lecture, I understand. No.
The Marsley Collection is
it's another thing to see when we're in town. That's
correct.
Right.
It's a contribution by Sir Alfred Maudsley, very famous explorer in South America.
Yes. In the telegram that Smythe sent, he mentioned that we would be in season to witness this interesting ethnographic display they have.
The Challenger lecture will be held at the Imperial Institute.
Oh.
And you will be arriving on the 2nd of January, and the lecture is on, you will be arriving on the 1st of January. The lecture is on the 2nd of January at 8 p.m.
Oh,
it's on the 2nd, not the 3rd.
Is it the 3rd?
Yeah, the 3rd.
The 3rd is what I have written down, and in my
it's on the
recap,
3rd.
So maybe
You're
I'm
correct.
Okay,
It's on the 3rd. So you'll have a day or two before the actual lecture.
Excellent. And I assume there will be some sort of end of year festivity on Leviathan, which should be amusing.
Yeah, on New Year's Eve. Yeah.
It's not a fancy dress, though. We don't have to worry about clothing for such a thing. Oh, but it is a New Year's party. I think I'll still bring some of my finer outfits for that. Oh, I'm sure with black tie. I just don't mean we don't have to dress like a sphinx or some such. Oh, yeah, I understand.
So with you asked a question, I can actually answer it. Here is a map of London and some of the sites. So you've got a Buckingham Palace here. You can see the Ritz is across the street. Claridge's is a block over.
Yes, number 1 is Imperial Institute.
There you go.
It is
next to Hyde
on
Park.
The east side.
Yes, my
museum.
My apartment, my flat overlooks Hyde Park, so it's not too far. It's on the same block as the Claridge Hotel.
Right.
And the British Museum is item number 3 on the map.
Yeah. And there's some Marylebone near Regent's Park.
Where's Carlton here?
I don't think it appears on the map.
Might not be on there.
Oh, okay. So
we'll assume it's in the middle.
It is likely near Soho. Yes, this is where all the fancy hotels are clustered.
Yeah.
The Imperial Institute is item 1 on the map, which is also on on the edge of Hyde Park.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Excellent.
All right. So there are indeed, I don't really have anything for the ship itself. You guys, I assume, have all packed. We'll assume you have winter weather clothes and everything you have to stay. More probably 3 weeks at the least. It's a long trip. It takes a week to cross the ocean. There's moments when the weather's not so great, but for the most part, you arrive without any difficulty. You arrive on the 1st of January. You guys get settled in your hotels. Dr. Edison gets to his flat and settles in. And we'll say that you arrive kind of late on the 1st, and you're going to get together on the 2nd, first thing in the morning. Consider communication and all that, how you're going to handle that. What do you want to do?
On the evening of the 1st, I plan to stop by the hotel bar and actually have a draft beer. As living in America, I've not been able to enjoy that experience in a long time.
Yes, for that matter, we should we should have some proper New Year's Day food. Pork to live high on the hog in the year to come. Maybe we get a schnitzel also. And I imagine only the hotels are really available on the 1st of the year. As many people will be on holiday. But yes, we enjoy some proper civilized fare.
You booked your rooms months ago, so
yeah.
Cool. Yes, you have a very nice evening, very nice dinner, and enjoy each other's company. You eventually retire for the evening and you get up the next morning. So it's now the 2nd. What would you like to do? You are in London. I did give you a book. It probably got little things to do in London.
Yeah.
Your characters don't actually receive that until they get to the train, but
right,
it's there for you guys to use.
I want to. I'm proud of the city, and I want to show it off to my companions, my traveling companions. So I'll suggest that we hit the museums and check them out. Both the Victoria and Albert Museum is fascinating, as well as the British Museum and Library. That's also amazing. Why don't we start at the Victoria and Albert, and then work our way over to the British after that?
Yeah,
that's agreeable to me, unless we want to do Victoria and Albert today and British Museum tomorrow before the evening's activities. I assume that they are both infinitely full of curiosities.
Oh, yeah.
Quite.
Yes.
I should also mention that Professor Smythe has a residence at St. John's Wood, which is just above Kensington, not particularly too far from where you guys are staying. It's north of Hyde's Park, a few blocks.
You could give him a ring to see if maybe we could set up a visit.
Well, that would make sense to me. I mean, we haven't seen him in a while. Maybe just a quick drop by. I mean, seeing these museums does interest me quite a lot.
Yes, and the museums will still be there. I would love to see Smythe again in person before outside of the lecture itself, because such an environment is not conducive to catching up with a friend.
No, indeed. Dr. York, is it the custom here that we would ask him to a tea, or he would ask us to a tea, or how do you go this?
Oh, there's no standing protocol for that. We can certainly ask him. It'll just depend upon what schedule he has going on.
Yeah, he might have many preparations and want to meet up afterwards as well, but we can ask.
So you're going to phone?
Yeah.
The phone rings a couple of times and is answered by his butler, James Beddoes, who you're also very familiar with. This is the Smythe residence. May I help you?
Yes, James, this is Gunter Block from America. And
Mr. Block, you've arrived.
we have me and the other 5 gentlemen are here in the city now, and we were wondering if Dr. Smythe would be available for a quick drop by. We haven't seen him in so long.
Well, certainly. Just one moment, please. And, there's a few moments, and he comes back. Actually, Professor Smythe answers the phone. Yes. Is this Gunter?
It is.
Ah, you've made it at last. Excellent. You must come over at once.
Oh, well, wonderful. Yes. We'll be over in as soon as possible. Do you need us to bring anything?
Oh, no. We'll have you eaten. We'll have breakfast ready if you would like to come over.
Oh, that sounds good. I've heard a lot of these English breakfasts.
Did everyone come? Did everyone make it?
Oh yeah, all 6 of us.
Excellent. Please, yes, do come over quickly. And he hangs up the phone. All right, so you guys are all on your way. James Beddoes is the name of his butler. And more than butler. I mean, they've always been, it's his research companion as well on everything that he does. All right, you drive over to St. John's Wood. They say it's only a few blocks over. And you drive up to a small manor house. So
Lovely.
it's not huge, but it's nice for, one man and his butler. And you park, or you're probably in cabs. The cabs drop you off. And James Beddoes meets you at the door. Please come inside. And it's a nice place, but it's kind of what you'd expect from Professor Smythe. He likes things to be very organized and lovely, and there are always piles of books and papers and things that he's working on here and there, because he still continues to do research. He meets you in the front room. Ah, gentlemen, you've arrived. How wonderful! What a great job you did on the ghost ship.
Yes, that was quite the experience. I have not been able to crack how someone pulled that off, but
it's quite a mystery. That's what makes it so interesting, especially for us, members of the Arcane Society. Please come inside. Let's sit in the parlor.
Thank you.
And he asks you about your trip and about all of that. So, how long are you going to be staying in London? Oh, you didn't care. Oh, you don't care for water, to cross water, as I recall. I hope you stayed amidships. That's where it's least noticeable.
It's terrible.
In any case, you're here now. So what do you think of our lovely little... Well, you're from here, aren't you, Dr. York? What do the rest of you think of our little city?
It's lovely. I'd love to see more of it. when time avails.
I certainly shall, yes. We'll have to drop by at the Oriental Club as well. My club here, it's a gentleman's club. You'd fit right in, all of you.
Yes, it's not far from. We're staying at the Carlton, most of us, and I noticed it is not far away.
Oh, the Carlton's very nice. You know, I would have you here, but we're doing some renovations. I'm expanding my library at the moment, and we don't need all of the rooms that we previously had, so might as well reorganize, move things out.
One can truly never have too many books.
It's true.
Very true.
Are you adding anything in particular to the expansion, or just a larger variety on all the subjects?
Well, I can show you. We'll have a little walk around, and he takes you and he shows you. The house is nice, but it does have too many bedrooms. We just don't need 7 bedrooms. And my study is here, and he takes you into his library, and it's what you'd expect. It's very, very kind of dark. It's got, reddish carpeting, a red Oriental carpeting, and it's got some wing chairs, and it's floor to ceiling books, and a lot of old things, and shelves with papers. And he says, we're knocking that whole wall out there, and we're moving it that way. There's a large bedroom there, but once we've moved it, then we can make this into one grand library. Someday maybe to rival the British Library, although I think that's
All order there.
Yeah.
I'll give it all to them when they're done, or the university, or someone such as that.
Presumably, the Smythe collection would be more specialized. And
Does the out of character question? Does the Arcane Society headquarters in Arkham have a library?
It's got a small one, the Corbin Library. Yeah.
You should certainly consider donating to the Arcane Society and expanding that library.
I'll certainly have a portion of it that will go to you.
Excellent.
There are interesting and research pursuits that I've been working on for years here and there. Nothing of any great interest, just this and that.
Give us a leg up on rivaling the restricted collection at Arkham, at Miskatonic, don't you know?
You know that it was I who first petitioned our Miskatonic to allow the Arcane Society to have access to some of their more dangerous works.
Yes, I've always found their, as much as I love teaching at Miskatonic, some of their ways are quite strange. Why you would have knowledge and lock it up like that. But I mean, the University of Buenos Aires had similar texts that they kept under lock and key as well.
I think a lot of that has to do with Dr. Henry Armitage. He's very motherly, if you will. He tends to be afraid that I don't know. It's a bit. I suggested to him at one point that he could make electrostatic copies of some of the texts rather than allow anyone to touch them directly. He didn't like that idea very much. He's afraid of technology. But someday, I'm hoping that libraries such as that are available to everyone.
Well, like any good librarian, he cares an awful deal about the volumes under his care. That's a quality I admire. It is the fear of those books that I find fascinating myself.
Did I mention in the telegram to you about the latest collection at the British Library, the Alfred Maudsley?
You did. I'd be quite interested to see what they've collected there.
Well, Alfred, and he should be there. He's in town to open the collection. An interesting man, a true.
Sorry, I don't know that.
Alexis, shut up. Great, I got a name that's similar to what her name. He's a true archaeologist in the sense that he's very concerned himself with damaging anything original. So aside from a few artifacts that he has actually appropriated, for the most part, the man makes large plaster casts around bits of building and stela and so forth, then removes them, cuts them into pieces, and sends them back so that the British Museum can make replicas of the original. One of them is 32 feet high. It's quite spectacular. Very
and
strange.
these are ancient Peruvian works, I believe you said?
Mayan, I believe.
Oh, Mayan, Central America. That's correct, yes?
I believe that's correct. Very strange hieroglyphics, all sort of twisted and contorted individuals with very large noses and their heads shoved back, and headdresses all carved in bas relief.
Yes,
Quite spectacular.
That sounds intriguing. Very
the
intriguing.
Mayans had such an interesting culture and religious life. I'm very excited to see these replicas of his.
Yes, as am I. It sounds, as I said, very intriguing.
Well, and of course, the rest of the British Museum, there's so many things you could spend all day, or a number of days in there looking around.
For sure, I could spend a long time in museums, my friend.
And the library there, I've spent a great deal of time at the British Library. Of course, I have academic clout, and I have access to everything, and one can find a wealth of information there on just about every subject in the world. And they're just as careful as Armitage is with every book that they have. Which
Well,
is
you have
always
to be.
good to see. Yes,
Yes.
indeed.
I'm curious, Julius, with the material we sent over regarding the investigation, did you review that with any peers here?
Yes and no. I've got. It's part of the reason why I got the Challenger lecture this year.
Will you be
I've shown it to
speaking?
a few. Yes, I'm the main speaker.
But will you be speaking on the Hughes Ghost ship? Have you made
Yes.
progress?
In part, there's been a few other incidents in various other parts of the world that have produced similar things as something from Norway and something right here from London. Completely unrelated, I believe, but that's part of what makes it most intriguing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It doesn't seem in any way orchestrated, or it seems so completely disjointed. And I'm told that there are literally hundreds of such occurrences that have been recorded. The problem is it's very, very rare that you could actually be there to witness them before they vanish forever.
Do these other phenomena share the tendency to relate somehow to the lunar angles?
No, not at all. One of them is a woman who is walking down the stairs. This one's the Norwegian, the lady on the stairs, you could call her. She starts at the top of the stairs and she walks about halfway down the stairs before she just disappears. And she's appeared 5 times in the last 10 years. And one of those times it was photographed. But once again, it didn't seem to have any connection, except that there was a lady of the house in the late 1700s that seemed to have vanished for no apparent reason. Her painting looks very much like the photograph. and no explanation. Nor was she ever recovered, nor did they ever have a body that they could pronounce as somebody who had died. That's why I don't really care for the term ghost.
The night that she disappeared, was there electrical activity in the weather?
We don't know. We don't have the record for that.
Fascinating.
Do you have the picture that you mentioned?
Oh, yes, it's in my collection. I've got these papers. I've had some of them made into slides so that we can show them. And I'm going to show you a cinematograph. That's most especially important. I also have this. He shows you the woman coming down the stairs, and it has the same quality. It's got kind of a glow to it, and you can see through it. You can see the wall and the wainscoting behind it.
Yeah.
The other one is a cart with horses drawing it. And he said this one was oddly described, same sort of quality of light, and the person who saw it managed to take a number of photographs in succession, and it looks like the tail on the horse is moving, but in slow motion, the same as the ship. And also, such a trap and pony just disappeared from some time in the past. That seems to be the recurring theme, is that these are objects or people or things that for no apparent reason simply were removed from our reality and have gotten trapped, if you will, in a particular place, in a particular time, though not necessarily where they disappeared from, like the ship.
I'll examine the photographs. I'm kind of looking to see if I could recognize any, like, is it a double exposure trick or something? Yeah.
Well, that's hard to tell.
Yeah.
But he explains that that's why I was so excited to see if you could actually get a film of the thing, because that would have made it, that would have confirmed what we suspect. I think that we might find the answer to these things more in the realm of mathematics and physics than we will in the occult.
How so?
Well, we have these burgeoning ideas about the nature of time and space having an interrelation that is complex but rational, not mysterious or psychic.
There's speculations there might be more than just the three dimensions that we know. Time might be very strange. Space itself might be very strange. I don't know if Einstein had been writing at this point, but probably. And he shows you a little bit more of his research. And he says the fun thing's going to be that I didn't actually tell the venue what we were going to be talking about. I wanted to sort of surprise them.
Will this topic be out of the ordinary for their lectures? Do you think it'll cause a stir?
The Challenger lectures tend to be what is most interesting and popular at the time. Marconi was up for it with his little radio gizmo, but
yeah,
he stole it from some other fellow.
Armstrong.
I don't remember his name. In any case, it should be a nice evening. There should be dinner, a lot of hobnobbing with important people.
Yeah, I am looking forward to it.
It'll be fun. So the afternoon or the morning goes on, and I'd say that, there's got to be a point where you guys kind of run out of stuff to say. You probably want to go look around the city and see things. And he will see you tomorrow night at the lecture. He'll make sure that we all sit together. I'll have a table reserved.
Oh, excellent.
Fantastic.
All right. So as you leave there, what would you like to do next? You're going to go to the British Museum?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
You also can go to the other one that you said. I don't have a picture of that. When you get to the
Let's
British,
do the British.
you get to the British Museum. There are some very impressive banners out in the front. People are going in. The banners are, of course, talking about the Maudsley exhibit. They've got it dressed up quite phenomenally, so that as you're entering, you turn a corner, and there are suddenly these gigantic pillars of rock with carvings all over them and this very strange Mayan stuff. There's a smaller statuary in between of some of the very strange pieces.
Do I know anything about these?
Fascinating.
If you know, well, you can roll for your I guess archaeology or history. Most of what you would know would be because of Alfred Maudsley's work.
What about, so
Yeah.
I have occult, I have history, and I have anthropology, which
I'll roll in archaeology because I'm fascinated by
History.
history.
Yeah, I can do this.
You can do archaeology.
Yeah.
Dorian.
Okay.
I'll try archaeology here.
Wow. I got a 12, which is an extreme.
I got a 6, which is an extreme. History.
Nice.
Okay.
These are beautiful. That's what
So from Dr. Gabriel's point of view, you know that Arthur Maudsley has traveled the world, mostly in the Central South America and Mexico. He's helped to discover a number of temples and archaeological finds. Dorian, you would know, what he's actually contributed, that he's gone in and found amazing wonders like these. And he's, rather than destroy them, he's literally made copies of them. He's encased them in plaster and then cut the plaster away and sent the plaster casts back to make copies, which in our real world, is a good thing, because the British Museum's collection of his stuff is probably the only thing remaining, because a lot of the originals were eventually destroyed by other archaeologists who broke them and cracked them up and destroyed them accidentally, whatever. There's, of course, also so much to the British Museum. There's Egyptian stuff, and there's Sumerian stuff.
Yeah, Dorian will be very fascinated for the entire time. He will have
You
a little-
literally could you'll spend all day there. And then when you get around to going towards the center of the museum, you hit the British, the library, the reading room, as they call it.
Yep.
It's espectacular.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Oh my.
You notice in the library area, there are a number of scholars who are working on stuff. You notice that there are a lot of younger men who seem to be attached to those people. And then there are librarian staff behind the counter. Everybody has on white gloves, when they're handling these books. You get the impression that the scholars don't go get the books themselves, and they certainly don't put them back. That's what the younger men are for. They're trained to handle what might be very delicate, texts and so forth. So it's all very, very careful, more careful than Armitage. But Armitage, if he saw this, would probably want to do this at Miskatonic.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sort of just moving the story ahead.
Yeah.
That evening, of course, you guys have a lovely dinner. You chit chat. You see the sights of London at night, and you're quite, impressed. It's quite lovely. Although it is chilly, it is not freezing cold, but it could easily turn freezing cold at a moment's notice. And there's definitely snow in places, in parks, under trees that hasn't melted. And this is January, so it could get pretty bad. The next morning comes, and you spend some time in London, probably checking out Buckingham Palace and other such places. And eventually the evening comes, and you head on over to the Challenger Lecture. The Challenger Lecture is in the Imperial Institute. It is across from Hyde Park.
Oh my!
That is the banquet room that it's all held in there at the bottom.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
So everybody's dressed in fancy dress. There are, at first, people are walking about, chit-chatting with one another. There are waiters in fancy dress with interesting sort of headdresses on that are walking around with drinks and making sure everybody has hors d'oeuvres and drinks. And eventually you sit down to dinner. The dinner, let's see what the dinner is. The dinner begins with an appetizer of stuffed mushrooms, followed by a light beet salad, then a delicious mushroom bisque. The main entree is beef bourguignon with glazed asparagus and rice pilaf. Desserts, for those that are interested, will be served after the lecture. Over the din of the crowd, there is heard the tapping of a silver spoon upon a crystal glass as the master of ceremonies, Mr. Rayner, calls the Challenger gathering to order. He leads off with, "Please return to your seats." And you notice that everyone afterwards, within a few minutes, everybody is back to their chairs. And then he continues his introduction. After a general recognition, he gives to the many and various contributors to the Imperial Institute. Mr. Rayner speaks of the illustrious past lecturers, such as Pasteur and Zeppelin. He then lists many of the academic achievements of Professor Smythe. Tonight, our speaker is Dr. Julius Smythe. His rigorous skepticism and methodical analysis earn him high reputation as a debunker of mediums, spiritualists, fortune tellers, prophets, holy sites, apparitions, and so on. Even more so, his steadfast refusal to give any hint of his topic for tonight has earned him the respect of inquiring minds. Please give a warm welcome to this year's Challenger lecturer, Professor Julius A. Smythe. And everybody claps as he steps up onto the stage with his papers, and he is very much dynamic and charismatic, and controls the crowd very well the way he talks. He speaks about his experiences in the past debunking things, and he also just talks about the possibility that some things might be more substantial than others. He then begins talking about the experience that you have recently had. There proves to be, however, categories of repetitious phenomena offering no simple explanation, but one that may be rooted more in the scientific than in the spiritual. Let us define this phenomena as ectopic haunting. I'm using the term haunting and not ghost or spirit because alone of such epiphenomena, ectopic haunters can be buildings, lanterns, coaches and fours, swords, and so on, as well as men, women, dogs, bears, possessions, processions, and even armies. Worldwide, the store of casual anecdote concerning ectopic haunters is enormous. These haunters are not linked with specific observers, and the haunting presumably occurs with or without human witness, as we shall see. Thus, perception of such an event is secondary to the event itself. The essential characteristics of ectopic haunters are simple. The person or thing must have existed in real life. It must have subsequently disappeared in some sense, and that it must reappear once or many times. The location of the phenomenon may stay the same, or it may change. That which appears may be partial and insubstantial, or be as solid and real seeming as any member of tonight's illustrious gathering. No other conditions are needed. He then goes on to show the photographs, the movies. He notes the way the Valkyrie 2's sails move very slowly, the way something that you may or may not have noticed before, but there's a water line on the boat that seems to be included, and the water waves actually move the same way along the side of the boat, almost in slow motion. He points out that they can see you on the other side through the things, and he reports that you seem to be able to see inside as well. One might wait a lifetime or many lifetimes for a chance to see such things. Such apparitions seem not to be uniformly preserved. The south of England, for example, has been settled man for many thousands of years, yet the vast majority of ectopic hauntings seem to have been produced in the last 5 or 6 centuries. Only a handful seem to survive from Roman times. It is my belief that such ectopia represent clues concerning a natural universe, much larger and much stranger than we imagine. The walls of what we perceive as normality have a subtle flexibility. The spectral hauntings I have discussed represent attempts, perhaps random, perhaps purposeful, certainly unsuccessful, to return to this time and space by elements of it somehow removed. If we are energetic and not a little lucky in our observations, students of paraphysicality may one day be able to move up and down in time or travel globally with minor effect, or to perceive that which at present lies completely beyond our senses. What waits beyond remains the supreme question, which, for the present, each must answer for himself. Thank you. And there's applause, and there's what you'd expect at the end of a lecture. There's applause, there's thanks, and so forth. And he comes back over and he sits down at the table with you. Well, how do you think it went?
Well, you certainly had the audience, a rapt audience. I think everyone paid attention.
I'd say that most of them probably didn't have a clue about what I was talking about, but
I believe
we'll
by the
see.
second half, most of it went over most of these heads, although the cinematograph is impressive in its own right. The very end got strangely speculative. You think this is not only, I would assume that this was, if we were lucky, something that we would make intelligible, but you seem to think that we could make a technology out of this.
Oh, I think the speculation is true. It's, who knows, at some point, if this is the nature of physics, then we can eventually exploit it. We exploit everything else. So
Edison is again, because of the nature of skepticism and doubt. Edison is a little bit hesitant to fully buy in on everything that Smythe is talking about. But I'm also a little concerned that because it does sound so far-fetched, that maybe some of his hypotheses could be not founded in reality. And so without being overt about it, just simply from across the table and doing visual observations, I want to see what I can do to just kind of ascertain his physical more so than mental, but his current state of health. Does he seem as if has all of his faculties, and does he seem well? Would that be a medicine?
More psychology than anything else.
Psychology?
I'd let you do a medicine too.
All right. Well, it would be a successful medicine roll, but way outside of my range of psychology.
Let's say physically, he's a fairly healthy man. He's in his mid-60s. He doesn't seem to be ailing in any way. His banter and the way he conducts himself seems very much in line with Professor Smythe, the one that you've known for years.
His speech pattern seems stable. He doesn't seem to have any overt tremors or anything. Okay, all right. So he seems to be, as far as I can tell, without a more direct exam
the man
of his right mind.
Is a complicated man because he was once, the head of the Arcane Society. That he is completely aware that there are a lot of people here tonight that won't have a clue of what he's talking about. And so he, just like he did in the Arcane Society, for the outsiders, he tends to make things a little more flamboyant to keep their attention. He made little jokes about the woman coming down the stairs and the boat, and he threw in bears because it would have a funny reaction. People thinking about bears. Whether he's actually seen evidence or read anything about them is, to him, kind of irrelevant, as long as he kept the audience interested, as long as he was up there.
Also, given that we saw him after his wife's sudden demise and the pall that fell over him, he's obviously still in mourning, but he's preparing the house. He's excited to have the lecture.
And it's been a couple of years. I mean, he was no more or less what anybody would be after their wife passed away, And tonight he seems in a very good mood.
Right.
So I'm wondering what our next projects might end up being. Do you guys have anything? Do you gentlemen have any interesting things going on in the Americas? Back in good old Massachusetts.
Well, just academic lecturing, of course, and patience. So yeah, but it's rather routine.
Certainly nothing has been as out of the ordinary as the Hughes ghost ship since then. It did inspire me to experiment with some phosphorescent colorings, which might lead to a useful practicum at some point in the future.
Do you think there's still a chance that it could be a hoax of some sort, something that we haven't thought of?
If I did not have faith in my fellows who actually passed through the apparition, I could imagine that there was still some sort of artificial element, but what is described escapes any practical understanding that I can give.
Yes, if I hadn't have been in, if I hadn't have gone through it, I would have thought it was a hoax. But seeing what I saw, and feeling and hearing what I felt,
I've often
it's hard not to
wondered.
believe.
I've often wondered. You sort of confirmed something for me when you said that there was somebody inside the ship.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting. I've often wondered in some of the other photographs whether there was somebody there that we didn't see, somebody else in the Norwegian house, somebody in a building near where the horse and buggy disappeared. It all smacks of some strange experiment gone wrong.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
I don't think it's a hoax, as you would say, as someone trying to trick people into believing it, but I do feel that it has to be some logical explanation. We just haven't stumbled upon it. I mean, this man Einstein, his theories about space and time, we're only beginning to understand that. Maybe it was had something to do with time being bent at there. And if that was the case, then wouldn't need a person.
This other rather interesting fellow, Nikolai Tesla, seems to have done some very strange experiments with electricity.
Ah, yes. I've heard of him. One thing that interested me in your lecture, you said the ectostatic hauntings, that they were mostly of a more recent time. Did you mean that the images were from things of the last 100 years, or that there's no documented evidence of people seeing this?
It's difficult to, as I say, there's a great deal of anecdotal evidence.
Right.
None of that can be confirmed, but I found it odd that you don't find people talking about ancient Roman things appearing and disappearing at will. And yet you do hear about things from the 1800s, the 1700s and so forth.
If this is some sort of natural phenomenon that recapitulates technology of our own, for example, the wax cylinder, each time you play the wax cylinder, you scrape away a bit of the music or speech that is recorded on it is in perfect medium. And so perhaps something can repeat itself a finite number of times, depending on the initial charge, if there is something electric as a component of this phenomenon. So they might only last.
I've heard some interesting speculation that perhaps, the brain itself is it's an electrochemical stimulus that causes the brain to function, and that it might be, this is more ghost theory, but that some event, something has affected the material around it, the stones, the rock, the floor, the road, have become magnetized in some way, and that when one goes there and observes it, the brain is replaying the magnetic waves. And a person thinks, but we have photographs, we have a cinematograph. So I think there must be something else.
Yeah, but I mean, the photograph is just the capturing of light, similar to how our eyes see capturing light. So I could see that still being an explanation for why we could photograph it and see it.
The weird thing is the lack of consistency.
Yeah.
Why does this thing appear where it does, when it does? So it doesn't seem to be any commonality.
The lady on the stairwell is in a stairwell in the past and a stairwell in the present.
Correct.
Yes? and the boat was on a body of water, but it was on the incorrect body of water. It's as if there are some strange affinities between these, what is captured in one time and where it can appear in another.
The boat wasn't even actually on the water. It was a little above the water, as if the
But it
sea
wasn't
level
in the-
was different for the two things.
But not on the prairie. If we were to see a dinosaur, well, but yeah, even again, the Earth spins around the sun, and the sun spins around the galactic center. So we are very many millions of miles away from where these recordings were made. I wonder, we'll have to look through the notes. We know the night that the Valkyrie 2 disappeared. I don't know if we looked at a timetable to see if the moon was full that night. Above the storm clouds. If these connections are somehow relevant, I should have to look into that.
Well, as things wind down here, would you like to go to the Oriental Club? And have some
Jolly
drinks?
Yes.
Have some chat.
Hmm.
All right. So things do kind of wind down after a bit. People have some dessert, but you guys make an exit. Professor gets stopped a number of times. People are being polite and asking him questions and so forth. But after about,
What do you say the mood was like after the lecture? Is everyone going, oh, he's lost his marbles, or no wonder he didn't tell us, or?
There seemed to be a ratio of people that were intensely interested. And there were some that were, just there for the dinner. But people who looked somewhat important, and you've seen so many of them in the Arcane Society. They're dilettantes, they're people that just have a passing interest in the occult and so forth. They come up to him and they ask him some questions, and you wonder if tomorrow they'll go home and say, oh, I had a long conversation with Professor Smythe, and he told me all of these things, and I gave him some idea, bullshit. That kind of thing. There's very few people that are of your guys' academic height and so forth. So you leave there and you go to the Oriental Club. It's very lovely gentleman's club. It's very opulent on the inside. It's again, Oriental carpets, a lot of Asian decor, mixed with a lot of dark woods and comfortable furniture, and a lot of somewhat stuffy gentlemen sitting around, drinking, reading their newspapers, smoking cigars, and so forth. He takes you inside. You go up to the second floor. You find a small room, and you all make yourselves comfortable. You're served drinks, and you have a very nice conversation. Very impressive. You're having a very good time. Is there anything that you want to ask him, or we can move on from here?
One question I had, and Dr. Kurtz made me think of it when he mentioned it. Do we have any examples of these hauntings taking place? Like our ship was on water, the lady going down the steps was on steps, of a haunting showing up, like a ship appearing on land, on some place where in the physical world it shouldn't be, going down steps where there are no steps.
Only anecdotally. There's been a number of large old sailing ships that have supposedly been riding across the hills, the Flying Dutchman and things like that make no sense. There have been a number of armies that have been spotted on the battlefield that seem to have come out of nowhere, but they can all be traced, at least anecdotally, to whole battalions that disappeared, or a sailing ship that everybody assumes that it sank.
Right.
But what if it was something else? That's why he's sort of had this. Professor Smythe has his fingers in a lot of pies, and most of them, nothing ever happens, you know. But when something like this gets interesting, he'll write a book or he'll do lectures on it. And this seems to be his bailiwick at the moment.
Lost battalion. Well, Teddy, didn't the U.S. lose a battalion in the Great War? Maybe they will show up again sometime.
Maybe.
We'll keep our eyes out. Hopefully they show up for more than 1 week or 1 month. We got a few months out of your Valkyrie.
That makes me think of Professor Smythe. Is there anything currently going on that might require our group to maybe look at over here? Have you received any communiques?
I've done research on this and that, and well, I'm mostly retired now, so I give a few little lectures here and there, and I've got my collection of things. Nothing really that interesting. I thought maybe we could solve the Arthurian legends, perhaps at some point. See if we could trace down King Arthur or some other thing like that. It's getting a little bit. It's getting a little bit wearisome to travel so much, although I do enjoy it very much.
Is the Challenger lecture, will it be published in the newspapers tomorrow, or is it?
I'm sure there will be some people talking.
There'll be excerpts. With any luck, someone will be receiving photographic negatives and letters describing a number of these things, not knowing that there was a center that attended to these matters. And the word will get out, and we'll have 6 more case studies to consider. The more of them we can compare, the more we might have some theory that is more than half-baked.
I mean, part of that may have, in fact, been why I was so eager. Maybe somebody in the crowd will become our new friend, you know, somebody intrigued by what we've said. I haven't really been incredibly active. Mostly I've just been doing my own private research. My party days are over. I'm just not that interested anymore. But I do still have students who come around to my place from Cambridge and so forth.
Anything nearing the Arcane Society back in the States? Out here, perhaps?
Oh, no. I mean, there have been in the past. I did once. I was very eager to join the Arcane Society when I came to the United States, because I mean I'd had groups before in years ago here in London when I was a teacher. And he becomes solemn when he says that. And then kind of reminisces you can see him reminiscing in his mind for a bit. And then his brightness comes back. And he's like, let's have another glass of that brandy.
Maybe we can look for the Fountain of Youth there for you, Professor Smythe.
That's in Florida.
Yeah.
I'm fairly certain if it exists, it is not in Florida. Perhaps the Mississippi itself.
He toasts to friends long gone and to new friends.
Hear, hear.
Do you, Professor, are you personally acquainted with Maudsley?
I've met him a number of times. He's an interesting fellow. Quite the adventurer. Just tracking through jungles and getting malaria, and don't know if he fought off any native tribes, but
But for that matter, half the time Mexico's at war with the U.S. or the French or
Indeed.
itself.
Yes, quite the adventurer, but quite the ethical gentleman. I don't think he'd hurt a fly. It certainly wouldn't hurt an archaeological treasure.
He must be prepared to hurt some mosquitoes, however.
No, that's true.
Or perhaps that's why he had the malaria.
Yeah.
You're friendly with them. Not much of a choice there.
Anyway, your evening goes very nicely. You drink, you smoke some cigars. I don't know if you smoke. Your character smokes cigars if you need it. And he explains to the staff at the Oriental Club that while you're here, you should be welcome. So they keep a record of that so that you're welcome to come in and use the club. There's we'll say there's like a sauna, or not quite a sauna, but an indoor pool at one place where you can clean up, and there's showers. And, it's a gentleman's club, minus the stripper poles. It's not that kind of a gentleman's club.
Hey.
All right, so the 2nd of January comes and goes.
Third.
At some point, the 3rd comes and goes. Dr. Edison, were you going to visit your family at any point?
Yes, I want to head out to Swindon in order to get some time in writing Chestnut for sure, and seeing the family. But definitely want to get some time in riding through the countryside. Does
anyone go with you, or do you invite them?
Yeah, if the city life, if you've had your fill and would like to see some amazing countryside and have some real excellent meals, then you are invited to Swindon.
All right, love to join.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get back into the English countryside.
I am interested in checking out the Tower of London. I've heard that there's rumors of hauntings there.
Well, we can say that, all the stuff that you want to do in London, you can do. You go out to Dr. Edison's family house, if that's what you were interested in. You do some sightseeing, you ride horses, whatever. The morning of the 6th, you are all having tea and breakfast. You're sitting around in the very beautiful, palatial conservatory of Dr. Edison's family, with lovely ferns growing here, and it's freezing cold outside and a little snowy, and you've got all this beautiful green stuff growing, and it's warm. And you are reading the newspaper, the Times, and I will let you guys take turns.
Highland refuses Ito on the bench and quit mayor's race. Foes realize need for keeping him on ticket to block third-party plan. McCoy calls leaders. Sounds like their politics are as rambunctious as the U.S. Kinsey chief confers with Olney, but both refuse to tell what was said. Meeting at borough leaders on mayoralty situation is put off until next week. In a final attempt to avert an open break and keeping in line for the ticket, liberals who do not believe Mayor Highland could make a winning fight for a third term yesterday sent friendly emissaries to the mayor, who now are bringing all their persuasive powers to bear with a view to inducing him to quit the mayoral race and accept a nomination for the Supreme Court in the 2nd Judicial District. Up to last night, these envoys of the anti-Highland forces had not been able to budge Mayor Highland from this determination to make a fight for the mayoralty again. It was stated, however, that the pressure would continue and that when the mayor awakened to a realization of his loss of popularity with the voters, there was hope that he would yield to the representations. Ah, democracy. It's such an entertainment.
We could jump ahead to something personal and we can continue. Honored Professor's home burns, all fear for his safety. Professor Julius Arthur Smythe, a figure well known in academic circles and recent honoree at this year's Challenger lecture, is being sought following a devastating fire at his St. John's Woods home. The manor is a complete loss, but fire inspectors say there were no bodies found. Missing also is a manservant, one James Beddoes. Witnesses say a man of similar build to Mr. Beddoes saw him running from the fire, possibly carrying another man shortly after the flames engulfed the house. The whereabouts of both men is unknown. Anyone with information on the fire or the location of the two men is requested to contact Detective Sergeant Rigby at Scotland Yard's Arson Division.
Good
My God.
Sergeant Rigby.
We should hurry back to London.
So there were a couple of other items in that paper that seemed possibly relevant, given that it was
certainly.
full of madness and violence.
Yes, very interesting.
Yeah. So those
All
of us who didn't leave town, I think, Hebloch was going to the Tower of London. I have a notebook full of locations that appear in the stories of Arthur Conan Doyle, and I was going to see which of them actually existed around London. I'm not surprised about Baker Street being differently numbered than I had hoped, but I have a weakness for those tales. So those of us who are in town will probably, reach each other if possible. If we're both in the Carlton, it should be simple and rush to the scene.
Indeed. Okay. So we'll just assume that one way or the other, you all end up at the St. John's Wood home area. It's still smoking a bit because it was last night that this occurred. They've managed to put out the fire, so there's no fires. There's just smoking rubble. The library, everything. You can see broken pieces of art, of things that he had, statuary, stuff like that. Got broken pieces of paintings and so forth. The gates are wide open because the firefighters went inside. There's a lot of
Fire brigade.
The fire brigade. But for the most part, the fire brigade and the police, they're gone. They're not here at this point. What do you guys want to do?
I don't know how much we're going to be able to find poking around in the ashes, but I wonder if anybody at the Oriental Club has seen him since.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
There.
I'm certainly going to walk the grounds. I know from other experiences with fire that it will lift paper up and then drop it again at a distance, and I'm sure everything inside is completely destroyed by water and fire. There might be something on the ground. As far as the Oriental Club goes, if Beddoes carried Smythe away, and yet they did not appear to the authorities or at the club or call on us at the hotel, my assumption is that we know from the paper that the arson, the police arson group is investigating. I fear that they are underground because this was a personal attack.
Yes, if there's an attack, then they might be hiding. Very true.
Yes, but I would hate to rule out their presence at the Oriental Club before going there. I don't know where else to check.
Oh, well, I would not rule it out, certainly. I hope that we shall find something immediately, but I would like to inspect the grounds. I encourage us to divide and see. The sooner we find them, the better.
Yes, Dr. York feels most comfortable going to check out the Oriental Club.
Okay. So for now, you're at least walking around the grounds of the burnt down structure.
Yeah.
Everybody do a spot hidden for me.
55 irregular.
I also got a 55, but a 55 is a failure for me.
I thought it would be a good idea to look around the grounds, which is why I rolled a 93.
Hi, Bill.
And Theodore, how did you do?
I'm sorry. What was I rolling?
You're doing a spot hidden. You're walking around the grounds.
Yeah, I'm doing a perimeter check. Thank you. And 28. So that looks like something good. That would be that's a hard pass.
Okay. For the most part, as you're all walking around, I mean, it's devastating. You're seeing the spines of old books. You're seeing, a great deal of damage. And Dr. Dorian, you got a regular?
Yeah, I got a regular.
You don't find much of anything either. But Theodore, as you're sort of kicking around the stuff, and a lot of the stuff was dragged out almost by like hooks to get, so they could get the water into the fire and so forth. You notice kind of half buried in some of the burnt rubble, you notice a leather pouch. It's flat. It's burnt, but it doesn't look like the contents are burnt. You open it up and there is a journal inside. Journal. It's obviously one of Professor Smythe's journals, and it's dated 1893.
1893. Look at this. This is amazing. 1893.
That's 30 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, when he was a young man, obviously cared about it.
It's not just the journal, too. There's a lot of postcards and other things that are in there. And it managed to stay dry, too. It didn't get wet.
This might give us a clue as to maybe where he is. Maybe he has a family member or friend he has mentioned in here that he might be hiding out.
So for now, you slip that into your jacket. You guys are all in, heavy coats and so forth. And then we're going to go to the Oriental Club. You arrive at the Oriental Club, and they've already heard the news. Obviously, everybody's read the morning paper. They're quite distressed that his house is burned out and that he's missing. Nobody has heard anything from him at all.
I don't really know these people here at the club.
Bit of bad news. It's horrible, very sad. Hopefully he, they should search the hospitals, make sure that he's not somewhere, or perhaps he did burn to death in the fire. Who can say?
Oh, if he did, you'd think that there'd be some bones left. Tell me, my good friend, Julius, he came here quite regularly.
Yes, quite regularly.
He didn't complain about someone harassing him while he was here? Not someone of the club, but maybe someone in his personal life that had been harassing him.
None that we have ever heard of. I mean, he was quite jovial man, quite friendly, well liked by everyone.
Did he have anyone particularly he was close with here at the club?
No, I mean, well, everyone. I mean, everybody knew him. As I say, particularly close, not really, but he certainly wasn't estranged from anyone. He was a good gentleman. He'd been a member of the Oriental Club for most of his life.
I want to kind of observe the room and see if there's anyone who seems to be kind of going out of their way to avoid the conversation, avoid the topic of.
Okay. Go to spot hidden.
All right, spot hidden. Okay. Yeah, clearly they're out in the street. I'm looking out the window.
Yeah, you don't notice anything like that. Dr. Roland, one of the young, I don't know what you call him, maybe a page or something from the place, he comes up to you and he says, pardon me, sir, are you Dr. Roland Kurtz?
Yes, certainly.
I was told to give this to you. And he hands you a small envelope, okay, about the size of a business card.
And I hand him a random European coin or English coin because they make no sense.
14 pounds, sir. Thank you. I have no idea what the denominations on their coins are. You open it up, and it is a business card from Professor Julius Smythe. And before you say anything out loud, you flip it over and you read the back of it.
As I expected, he is remaining underground and afraid. And yeah, before I say anything, of course, I'll nudge, the fellow nearest me and will probably hand it silently from one to the other. But in his, on the back of his official university card, it says, "Come at once. We haven't got long. 134 Darby Street, Whitechapel. For God's sake, don't let anyone follow you. Our only hope is that you remain unknown. Julius." Now,
look at the fingerprint.
We've seen Julius's handwriting, and this is consistent with it. Yeah, maybe shakier. And Dr. York, and like we've, asked for a midday schnapps or whatever, and retired to one of the little side chambers. Dr. York, my impression is that the Whitechapel area is not a good part of London. This is so?
Well, yes, this is so. Quite unsavory.
Yeah. So he is, as we feared, he is hiding. And also, it is, if I was found here, then other people will be watching. So I am going to make a little act now and go to the street and ask for a cab somewhere else in a big hurry. And then you should go maybe in groups of 1 and 2 to this area separately after I leave. Maybe someone watches to see if I am followed right away. And I will meet you at the Carlton in no more than 90 minutes, or you can leave a message at the room there for me so I know. But I will go somewhere, a third place, and then I will go to the Carlton, and then I will wait to hear, because I'm sure if he is this afraid that we must be cautious.
Yes, very good, very good.
All right.
So I'm going to let Roland leave, and then I will have aside conversations in private corners with each of our other companions, and let them know that we need to retire um, we're going to be gathering, meeting for dinner at the Carlton Hotel, and that we should all be freshen up for dinner and retire for that.
Okay.
And I mean, I had tugged in as many of us to this little private conversation before my running for the cab. So it's just the two of us.
So you've all used stealth and manipulation to get where you need to go without being followed. You're keeping an eye out for people following you, making sure nothing happens. I'd say it sounds like you're successful in doing that. And you all converge on this Whitechapel address. It is a rather rundown looking apartment, maybe 3 stories high. You go up to the door, and as you do, you notice looking out from the shuttered windows, they're parted a little bit. For a moment, you see Beto's face, and he immediately moves toward, he sort of motions for you to the door and heads down. He lets you in. When he lets you in, the first thing you notice is there is definitely a smell. The smell is bacon-like. You can also see that Beto's hands, he's got them bandaged. He's like, please come in quickly.
And I feel like it would have been natural instinct for me to have my leather bag with me.
Yeah. Please come in. Of
course.
Professor's in the other room. He's very badly burned.
Oh God! Get me to him quickly.
He'll explain. We wanted to take him to a hospital, but he insisted that we get a hold of you first. So you go in the other room, and the curtains are closed, and everything is closed off so that nobody can see in. So it's dimly lit, but there's, I don't know if they use the hurricane lanterns or there's no electricity in this building. And he's lying in bed. The sheets are down, and he is very badly burned. All of his beard, mustache, his hair, the hair on his head is gone. He's blistered all over his face and all over like one side of his body. And there are also some rather deep looking, horrible looking scratches on his chest. His hands are shaking, and he is, you think at first that he might be a little delirious in pain. You also notice that there's a number of medical things next to the bed that probably Beto's has been administering. There's some morphine, there's some cleaning, I don't want to say cleaning solution, a saline solution and stuff like that so that he can clean him to some extent. And his voice is very raspy, like he's breathed in a lot of smoke, and he has lung damage. And he's like, oh, you're here. Oh, thank God you've come. Please come inside. And Dr. Edison, you move towards him, and he's like, no, we're going to a hospital, but there's something I have to tell you first. I have to explain to you. It's a matter of great importance. So he tells you this story. He says, last night, a group of madmen, I think they might have been Turkish, they banged on our front door When Beddoes answered, they assaulted him with a knife, but they didn't know that Beddoes had military training. So he managed to fight them off to some extent, but they still managed to subdue him. They got into the house, and they decided they were going to interrogate Professor Smythe. Says they wanted to know everything that I knew about a certain legendary artifact. I feigned ignorance. I told them nothing about it. It's an object called the Sedevka Simulacrum. They decided to torture me, and what they did was they held me down, and they started cutting my chest with a knife. I spit in their face, the blighters. Then the man produced a bottle of some green substance. I think it was acid, and he dripped it on me. It burned terribly, but just then, Beddoes broke free and kicked the bottle from the man's hand, and it exploded. It went everywhere. It must have hit the lamp because it suddenly burst into flame. Everything was on fire. The men fled, and as they also were lit on fire, I was in flames. But Beddoes managed to carry me outside and extinguish the flames. You see, his hands are burnt. I was much worse, but I was much worse, as you can see. Beddoes' first instinct was to take me to the hospital, but I told him the blighters would be looking for burn victims. They wanted what I knew. For them to attack me, they must know next to nothing, or else they would have already located the simulacrum. The truth is, I don't know very much. All of my research is up in flames, thank God. To me, it was just one of a dozen interesting mysteries, but somehow they must have learned that I might know more. I thought it was completely unimportant. We've planned, Beddoes and I, that perhaps this summer or the next we would set off and try to find it, or at least part of it, or what happened to it. We were saving up to take the Orient Express. Beddoes, there's a valise there. Bring the valise. There's about 100 pounds, 1,000 pounds sterling. Give it to them. No, take it. Don't worry about keeping track. Use it. Before you arrived, I had Beddoes write down what I could remember about the thing. So I'm very, very sorry, my friends, to ask you this, but there are evil men now seeking to retrieve an evil thing for no doubt evil purposes. It's unclear what the thing does. It may be like the Ark of the Covenant or the Spear of Longinus. Those who possess it can't be defeated. It could be a conduit for some elder horror. We don't know. But unlike so many other occult objects, this would appear to be of great importance to them, and we cannot allow them to get their hands on it. Now, we have some advantages. The enemy don't know that you're on the trail. They don't know that you even exist, and they will think that I am dead. You have the academic credentials and the knowledge to gain access to information that those madmen will never be able to gain access to. You have you look and act like tourists, which will make you nearly invisible. And you have the fastest, most reliable, and most comfortable transportation that money can buy, the Orient Express. So go, find it, destroy it, before the enemy has it. Keep vigilant, be wise, blend in, and we will thwart them before they even know that they are at risk. Beddoes is taking me north. to a veterans hospital as soon as you leave, a secret place, a place that they will never suspect I am. There we can remain hidden, and we will keep you posted on our progress via telegraph restant. Remember what that is. And then he urges you to take the valets, take the notes that Beddoes has taken, and go. I mean, you probably have questions and stuff, but for my voice, I didn't do the whole thing, but he's in agony. Yeah, you can tell that he's in agony. And there's a lot of breaks and flinchings.
I want to see if there's anything that I can do to stabilize him for the trip that Beddoes is going to take him on.
Okay, do your medical.
Standard success.
Okay. You are at least, you're using, Beddoes seems to know what he's doing. Maybe he had medical training in the military, but you're definitely, cleaning what you can. And that's when you notice that the cuts that they were torturing him with, they actually spell out something.
Good God. I put a piece of paper on him and get a rubbing. No.
Derezes, Olan.
What language is this?
I don't reckon.
Tilamaz.
Tulamaz. I don't recognize it.
He actually seems unaware that it actually spells anything because it's on his body, and all he knew was that they were carving it into him. Is there anything else you want to do? He says quickly now, Beddoes will bundle me up. We must go. We must go secretly and quietly so that they don't. I will, when we arrive, we'll send you a message. Perhaps it'll arrive in Paris. Check we need to have a password so that you can retrieve the telegram.
Chestnut.
There you go. Chestnut it is. All right. And what is there anything else you want to do before you leave?
Ask him if he recognizes that language. Let's say that.
It sounds like it could be Turkish.
Mm.
They sounded like Turks. They were big men with very odd mustaches and a dark complexion.
Does Beddoes need any first aid?
He says that he's fine. I mean, he's not fine, but he only got burned on his hands and arms, so he's stalwart.
I tell him to fly swiftly. Smythe needs immediate care.
And with that, you guys sneak off into the night quietly and without being seen. And that is where we'll end it for tonight. I can hear somebody beeping. I don't know. Our players included Morgan Llewellyn, David Gasway, Stuart Lively, Keith Craig, Josh Harwood, and John Hook, with yours truly as the keeper of the secrets. We have a Discord server where you can chat with our other members. You can set up private games, and you can learn the finer arts of gameplay and game mastering. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. If you'd like to help support our show, please visit our Patreon account. Just $1 to a month helps us a lot. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch the bell icon for updates on our latest shows. And leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answer any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.